Welcome to the 1,000 Nights and 1 Night. Now, when it was the 97th night, she said, It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that when the damned witch Zat al-Dawai took the head of the night, the leader of the 20,000 infidels, she brought it and threw it down before Zat al-Makan and his brother Sharrkan, and said to Wazir Dandan, saying, When I saw your condition, I waxed jealous for your honor. So I rushed on the chief knight and smote him with the sword till I severed head from trunk, and none could near me. So I brought his head to you, that you might be strengthened in holy war, and work out with your swords the will of the Lord of the faithful. And now I propose leaving you to strive against the infidels, whilst I go to your army, though they be at the gates of Constantinople, and return with 20,000 horse to destroy these unfaithfuls. Quoth Sharrkan, How wilt thou pass to them, O thou holy man, seeing that the valley is blocked up on all sides by the miscreants? Quoth the accursed hag, Allah will veil me from their eyes, and they shall not see me, nor if any saw me, would he dare attack me at that time, for I shall be as one non-existing, absorbed in Allah, and he will fend off them from his foes. Thou sayest sooth, O holy man, rejoined Sharrkan, for indeed I have been witness of that. So if thou can pass out at the first of the night, 'twill be best for us. Replied she, I will set out at this very hour, and if thou desire, thou shalt go with me, and none shall see thee. Furthermore, if thy brother also have a mind to go with us, we will take him, but none else, for the shadow of a saint can cover only twain. Sharrkan said, As for me, I will not leave my comrades, but if my brother will, there is no harm in his going with thee and setting us free of this strait. For he is the stronghold of the Moslems, and the sword of the Lord of the 3 worlds, and if it be his pleasure, let him take with him the Wazir Dandan, or whom else he may elect, and send us 10,000 horse to succor up against these caitiffs. So after debate they agreed on this, and the old woman said, Give me the leisure to go before you and consider the condition of the infidels, if they be asleep or awake. Quoth they, We will not go forth save with thee, and trust our affair to Allah. If I do your bidding, replied she, blame me not, but blame yourselves, for it is my rede that you await me till I bring you tidings of the case. Then Sharrkan said, Go to them, and delay not from us, for we shall be awaiting thee. Thereupon she fared forth, and Sharrkan turned to his brother, addressing him, and said, Were not this holy man a miracle worker, he had never slain yonder furious knight. This is proof sufficient of the ascetic's power. And of a truth, the pride of the infidels is laid low by the slaying of this cavalier, for he was violent, evil devil, and a stubborn one. Now, whilst they were thus devising of the mighty works of the devotee, behold, the accursed Zat al-Dawai came upon them and promised them victory over the unbelievers. Wherefore they thanked her, not knowing that all this was wile and guile. And the damned hag asked, Where be the king of the age, Zat al-Makan, and the minister Dandan? Answered he, Here I am. Take with me thy wazir, said she, and follow after me, that we may fare forth to Constantinople. Now she had acquainted the infidels with the cheat, and she had put upon the Moslems, and they rejoiced with exceeding great joy, and said, Our hearts will be contented till we shall have slain their king and returned for the knight's death, because we had no stouter rider than he. And they added, bespeaking the ill-omened hag, as she told them her plan of faring to the land of the Moslems, When thou bringest him to us, we will bear him to King Afridun. Then she went out with her Zat al-Makan and the minister Dandan, and she walked on before the two, saying, Fare forth with the blessing of Almighty Allah. So they did her bidding, for the shaft of fate and fortune of a man's lot had shot them, and she ceased not leading them both through the midst of the Grecian camp, till they came to the defile, the narrow pass aforesaid, whilst the infidel enemy watched them, but did them no hindrance, for the infernal old woman had enjoined this. Now, When Zau-al-Makan and Wazir Dandan saw that the infidel host offered them no let and stay, and yet had them in sight, the Wazir exclaimed, "By Allah, this is one of the holy man's saintly miracles, and doubtless he be of the elect." Rejoined Zau-al-Makan, "By Allah, I think the infidels be naught but blind, for we see them and they see us not." And while they were thus praising the holy man and recounting his mighty works and his piety and his prayers, behold, the infidels charged down on them from all sides and surrounded them and seized them, saying, "Is there anyone else with you twain, that we may seize upon him too?" And the Wazir Dandan replied, "See you not that yon other man that is with us?" Replied the unbelievers, "By the truth of Messiah and the monks and the primate and the metropolitan, we see none save you." Then Zau-al-Makan said, "By Allah, this is chastisement decreed to us by Almighty Allah." And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of the day and ceased saying her permitted say. Now, when it was the 99th night, she said, "It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that when the unfaithful had seized upon King Zau-al-Makan and the Wazir Dandan, they said to the two, 'Is there any one else with you twain, that we may seize upon him also?' And the Wazir Dandan replied, 'See you not yon other man who be with us?' And they rejoined, 'By the truth of Messiah and the monks and the primate and the metropolitan, we see none save you two.' Then the primate and the metropolitan and the infidels laid shackles on their feet and set men to guard them during the night, while Zat al-Dawahi fared on and disappeared from their sight. So they fell to lamenting and saying to each other, 'Verily, the opposing of pious men leadeth to a greater distress than this, and we are punished by the strait which hath befallen us.' So far concerning Zau-al-Makan and the Wazir Dandan, but as regards King Sharrkan, he passed that night in the cavern with his comrades, and when dawned the day, and he had prayed the morn prayer, he and his men made ready to do battle with the infidel, and he heartened them and promised them all good. Then they sallied out till they were hard upon the unbelievers, and when these saw them from afar, they cried out to them, saying, 'O Moslems! We have taken captives your sultan and your wazir, who hath the ordering of your affairs, and except you leave off fighting us, we will slay you to the last man. But and you yield to yourself, we will take you to our king, who will make peace with you on condition that you quit our country and return home and harm us in naught, and we will do you no harm in aught. If you accept, it will be well for you. But if you refuse, there remain nothing for you but death. So we have told you sooth, and this is our last word to you.' Now, when Sharrkan heard this and was certified of the captivity of his brother and the Wazir Dandan, he was weighed down with woe and wept. His force failed him, and making sure of death, he said to himself, 'Would I knew the cause of this capture. Did they fail of respect to the holy man, or disobey him, or what was the matter?' Then they sprang up to battle with the unbelievers and slew great numbers of them. The brave was known that day from craven men, and sword and spear were dyed with the bloody stain. For the infidels flocked up on them as flies flock to drink, from hill and from plain. But Sharrkan and his men ceased not to wage the fight of those who fear not to die, nor let death hinder them from the pursuit of victory, till the valley ran gore and earth was full of the slain she bore. And when night fell, the armies separated, each making for his own place, and the Moslems returned to the cavern, where gain and loss were manifest to them. Few remained of them, and there was no dependence for them but on Allah and the scimitar. Now there had been slain of them that day 35 men of the chiefest emirs, and they had killed thousands of the infidels, footmen and fighters on horse. When Sharrkan saw this, the case was grievous to him, and he asked his comrades, 'What shall we do?' Whereto all answered, 'That which Allah Almighty willeth shall befall us.' On the morning of the second day, Sharrkan said to the remnant of his troop, 'If you go forth to fight, not one of you will remain alive, and we have but little left of food and water. So I deem you would do better to bear your brands and go forth and stand at the mouth of the cavern to hinder any from entering. Haply, the holy man may have reached the Moslem host, and may return with 10,000 horse to succor us and fight with the infidels. For belike the unfaithful may have failed to see him, and those with him. They said, This were the better course to take, and of its expediency no doubt we make. So the troop went out, and held the cavern mouth, standing by its wall, and every one of the infidels who sought to enter in they slew. Thus did they fend off the foe from the gate of the cave, and they patiently supported all such assaults, till day was done, and night came on dusky and done. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of the day, and ceased saying her permitted say. Now, when it was the 99th night, she said, It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that the army of the Moslems held the cavern mouth, and stood by its walls, and they fended off the foe, and every one of the infidels attempted to charge them, they slew. They patiently supported all such assaults, till day was done, and night came on dusky and done, by which time King Sharrkan had only 25 men, and no more left. Then quoth the infidels to one another, When shall these battle days have an end? We are weary of warring the Moslems. And quoth one of them, Up and at them, for there remain of them but 25 men. If we cannot prevail on them to fight, let us fight a fire upon them. And if they submit themselves and yield to us, we will take them prisoners. But if they refuse, we will leave them for fuel to the fire. So shall they become to men aforeseeing mind a warning dire. May the Messiah on their fathers have no grace, and may the sojourn of the Nazarenes be for them no abiding place. So they carried fuel to the jaws of the cavern, and set fire to it. Thereupon Sharrkan and his companions made sure perdition, and yielded themselves prisoners. And while they were in this condition, lo, the night their captain said to those who counseled their slaughter, It is not for King Afridun to kill them, that he may gratify his wrath. Therefore it behoveth us to keep them in durance by us till the morrow, when we will journey with them to Constantinople, and deliver them to our king, who shall deal with them as he please. Said they, This is the right course. And he commanded to pinion them, and set guards over them. Then, as soon as it was black night, the infidels busied themselves with feasting and making festival, and they called for wine and drank it till all fell upon their backs. Now Sharrkan and his brother al-Nu-uman were in confinement, and so also were his companion knights. Whereupon the elder turned to the younger brother and said to him, O my brother, how wind free? By Allah, replied al-Nu-uman, I know not, for here we be like birds in a cage. Then Sharrkan waxed wroth, and sighed for excess of rage, and stretched himself till his pinion bonds burst asunder, whereupon, being free, he arose, and he went up to the captain of the guard, and taking from his pocket the keys of the fetters, freed al-Nu-uman and the Wazir Dandan, and the rest of his men. Then he turned to the two and said, I desire to slay these of the infidels, and take and don their dress, we three, so that we shall be guised as Greeks, and we will pass through them without anyone knowing us, and for a fourth to our own force. Replied al-Nu-uman, This is no safe counsel, for if we kill them, I fear some of their comrades will hear their shrieks, and the foe be aroused upon us and kill us. 'Twere the surer way to pass out of this defile. So they agreed upon this and set out, and when they had left the head of the street a little distance behind, they saw horses picketed and riders sleeping. And Sharrkan said to his brother, Better we take each one of us a steed. There were 25 horsemen, so they took 25 horses, whilst Allah sent sleep upon the infidels for a purpose. And the faithful mounted, and fared on until they were out of reach. Meanwhile, Sharrkan set to gathering from the infidels as many weapons, swords, and spears as were wanted. And while they took saddle and struck forwards, none of the infidels supposed that anyone could release al-Nu-uman and his brother and their men, or that their prisoners had power to escape. Now when all the captives were safe from the unfaithful, Sharrkan came up with his comrades and found them awaiting his arrival on coals of flame, expecting him in anxious grain. So he turned to them and said, "Feel no fear, since Allah protecteth us. I have that to propose, which happily shall effect our purpose." "What is it?" asked they. And he answered, "I desire that we all climb to the mountain top and cry out with one voice, Allahu Akbar, and ye add, the army is al-Islam is upon you. Allahu Akbar. This wise their company will surely be dissolved, nor will they find out the trick, for they are drunk. But they will think that the Moslem troops have encompassed them about on all sides, and have mingled with them, so they will fall on one another, branding in hand during the confusion of drunkenness asleep. And we will cleave them asunder with their own swords, and the scimitar will go round amongst them till dawn." Replied Zau-al-Makan, "This plan is not good. We should do better to make our way to our army and speak not a word. For if we cry out Allahu Akbar, they will wake and fall on us, and not one of us will escape." Rejoined Sharrkan, "By Allah, though they should awake, 'tis no matter, and I long that ye fall in with my plan, for naught save good can come of it." So they agreed thereon, and they clomb the mountain and shouted, "Allahu Akbar!" And the hills and trees and rocks reworded their Allahu Akbar for fear of the Almighty. But when the Kafirs heard the slogan, they cried out to one another. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of the day, and ceased to say her permitted say. Now, when it was the full 100th night, she said, "It hath reached me, O auspicious King, that Sharrkan spake thus, I long that ye fall in with this plan, for naught save good can come of it." So they agreed thereon, and clomb the mountain head, and shouted, "Allahu Akbar!" And the hills and the trees and the rocks reworded their Allahu Akbar for fear of the Almighty. The infidels heard it, and cried out one to other, and donned their armor, and said, "The foe is upon us by the truth of the Messiah." Then they fell on one another, and slew of their own men more than any knoweth save Almighty Allah. As soon as it was dawn, they sought for the captives, but found no trace of them. And their captain said, "They who did this were the prisoners in our possession. Up then, and after them in all haste till you overtake them, when we will make them quaff the cup of requital, and let no one fright from the panic of sudden awakening possess you." So they took horse, and rode after the fugitives, and it wanted but an eye twinkling before they overtook them and surrounded them. Now when Zau-al-Makan saw this, he was seized with increase in terror, and said to his brother, "What I feared would come is come upon us, and now it remaineth only for us to fight for the faith." But Sharrkan preferred to hold his peace. Then Zau-al-Makan and his companions rushed down from the hill crest, shouting, "Allahu Akbar!" And his men repeated the war cry, and addressed themselves to fight and to sell their lives in the service of the Lord of the faithful. And while they were in this case, behold, they heard many voices voicing, "There is no God but the God. God is most great. Salutation and salvation upon the apostle, the bringer of glad tidings and bearer of bad tidings." So they turned towards the direction of the sound, and saw a company of Moslems who believed in one God, pushing towards them, whereat their hearts were heartened, and Sharrkan charged upon the infidels, crying out, "There is no God but the God. God is most great, he and those who believe," so that the earth quaked as with an earthquake, and the unbeliever host brake asunder and fled into the mountains. And the Moslems followed them with lunge and blow, and Zau-al-Makan and his comrades of the Moslems ceased not to smite the host of the infidel foe, and parted heads from bodies till day and darkened, and night coming on the starkened sight. Thereupon the Moslems drew together, and passed the night in congratulations. And when the morning dawned, and the daybreak shone with its shine and sheen, they saw Bahram, the captain of the Dalamites, and Rustam, the captain of the Turks, advancing to join them with 20,000 cavaliers like lions grim. As soon as they saw Zau-al-Makan, the riders dismounted and saluted him, and kissed ground between the hands. And when he said to them, "Rejoice ye in the glad tidings of the victory of the Moslems and the discomfiture of the tribe of unbelievers." Then they gave one another joy of their deliverance and of the greatness of their reward after resurrection day. Now the cause of the coming of the succors to that place was this. When the Emir Bahram and the Emir Rustam and the chief chamberlain with the Moslems' host and flags flaunting high ahead came in sight of Constantinople, they saw that the Nazarenes had mounted the walls and manned the towers and the forts and had set all their defenders in order of defense as soon as they learned of the approach of the host of al-Islam and the banners Mohammedan, and they heard the clash of arms and the noise of war voices and tramp of horse hoofs, and from their lookouts they beheld the Moslems with their standards and ensigns of the faith of unity under the dust clouds, and lo, they were like a flight of locusts or rain clouds raining rain, and the voices of the Moslems chanted the Koran, and glorifying the compassionate one struck their ears. Now the infidels knew of the approach of this host through Zat al-Dawai, with her craft and whoredom and calumny and contrivance, and the armies of al-Islam drew near, as it were the swollen sea, for the multitude of footmen and horsemen and women and children. Then quoth the general of the Turks to the general of the Dalamites, "O Emir, of a truth, we are in jeopardy from the multitude of the foe who is on the walls. Look at yonder bulwarks, and at the world of folk like the seas that clash with dashing billows. Indeed, yon infidels outnumber us an hundredfold, and we cannot be safe from the spies who may inform them that we are without a sultan. In very sooth, we ran danger from these enemies, whose numbers may not be told, and whose resources none can withhold, especially in the absence of King Zau-al-Makan and his brother Sharrkan and the illustrious Wazir Dandan. If they know of this, they will be emboldened to attack us with their absence and with sword, and they will annihilate us to the last man. Not one of us safety shall see. So it is my counsel that thou take 10,000 riders of the allies and the Turks, and march them to the hermitage of Matrahina and the meadow of Malakuna in quest of our brother and comrades. If thou act by my advice, it may be we shall approve ourselves the cause of their deliverance, in case they be hard pressed by the infidels. And if thou act not, blame will not attach to me. But as ye go, behoveth that ye return quickly, for ill suspicion is part of prudence." The Emir aforesaid fell in with his counsel. So they chose 20,000 horse, and they set out covering the roads and making for the monastery above mentioned. So much for that cause of their coming. But as regards the ancient dame Zat al-Dawai, as soon as she had delivered Sultan Zau-al-Makan and his brother Sharrkan and the Wazir Dandan into the hands of the infidels, the foul whore mounted a swift steed, saying to the faithless, "I design to rejoin the Moslem army which is at Constantinople, and contrive for their destruction. For I will inform them that their chiefs are dead, and when they hear that from me, their joining will be disjointed, and the cord of their confederation cut, and their hosts scattered. Then will I go to King Afridun, lord of Constantinople, and to my son Hardab, king of Rum, and relate to them their tidings, and will destroy them, and will not leave one of them alive." So she mounted and struck across the country on her good steed all livelong night, and when day dawn appeared, the armies of Bahram and Rustam advancing towards her. So she turned into the wayside brake and hid her horse among the trees, and she walked a while, saying to herself, "Haply the Moslem host be returning, routed from the assault of Constantinople." However, as she drew near them, she looked narrowly and made sure that their standards were not reversed, and she knew that they were coming not as conquered men, but fearing for their king and comrades. When she was assured of this, she hastened towards them, running at speed like a devil of ill rede, till reaching them she cried out, Haste ye, haste ye, O ye soldiers of the compassionate one, hasten to the holy war against the host of Satan. When Bahram saw her, he dismounted and kissed the ground before her and asked her, O friend of Allah, what is behind thee? Answered she, Question not of sad case and sore condition. For when our comrades had taken the treasure from the hermitage of Matrahina, and designed to win their way Constantinople wards, thereupon came out on them a driving host and a dreadful of the infidels. And the damned witch repeated to them the story to fill them with trouble and terror, adding that most of them are dead, and there are only but 25 men left. Said Bahram, O holy man, when dost thou leave them? But this night, replied she. He cried, Glory be to Allah, to him who hath rolled up the far distance for thee like a rug, so that thou hast sped thus, walking upon thy feet, and propped upon a mid-rib of palm tree. But thou art one of the saints which fly like birds, when inspired and possessed by his directions. Then he mounted his horse, and he was perplexed and confounded by what he had heard from the bedlam so strong of the lies and ill calumnies, and he said, There is no majesty and there is no might save in Allah, the glorious, the great. Verily, our labor is lost, and our hearts are very heavy within us, for our Sultan is a prisoner, and those who are with him. Then they cut across the country wide and side, night and day, and when morning dawned, they reached the head of the defile and saw Zal-Makan and Sharrkan shouting, There is no God but the God! Allahu Akbar! And salutation and salvation upon the congratulator, the commendator. Whereupon he and his drove at the unbelievers and whelmed them as the rain torrent whelms the royce, and cried out their war cries till fear got hold of the prowest knights, and the mountains were cloven in affright. And when shone the day, and showed its shine and sheen, the breeze of morning blew upon them sweet and fragrant, and each recognized other as hath been said before. Then they kissed the ground before the king and before his brother Sharrkan, who told them all that had befallen the party in the cave. Now thereat they marveled, and said to one another, Hasten we back to Constantinople, for we left our companions there, and our hearts are with them. So they all hurried departure, commencing themselves to the subtle, the all-wise. And Zal-Makan exhorted the Moslems. But when Zal-Makan had made an end of his verses, his brother Sharrkan congratulated him on his safety, and thanked him for the deeds he had done, after which both set out forcing their marches to rejoin their army. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of the day, and ceased saying her permitted say. And so do I cease my telling of this tale for today, till it be morrow.